Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Grutniblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G draft strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league wide as submitted by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Let's get it. Welcome on in, everyone, to this wonderful Monday evening. Hopefully, you have teams alive for a fantasy championship, unlike myself. I'm very down in the dumps, but hopefully, some people have some good stories. Put them in the comments if you're watching this live and you've got a story of your team in the finals or in the semifinals, depending on when your matchups go till. Let me have it. Tell me about your hopes and aspirations. Let me live vicariously through you on this fine Monday evening. Before I got a few comments, Josh was in here early. Drop Brock Besser for Morgan Frost. Need to know ASAP because they play at 8:30. I can fit him in both days before Brock Besser even plays. We can check this out side by side, do a little compare and contrast. Both guys getting some significant minutes. Both guys 3 points in the last 5 games. Yeah, about 20 minutes each for both of them. 199 shots per 60, 182 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 for Besser, 259 shots per 60 and 171 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 for Frost. The on ice numbers are better for Frost. I believe both, I'm going to double check this here, but I believe both are on the top power play units on their respective squads. Frost is there with Coronado, Huberto, and Kadri. And then Vancouver, I mean, what is the top power play? It's probably the unit with Brock Besser on it anyway. And he is there with Pius Suter, Jake DeBrusk, and Jonathan Lekkerimäki. This is a good question. I am inclined to stick with Besser. I think it might come down to schedule, honestly. They're very close. Colorado and Utah are the next 2 games for Calgary. Then they play Anaheim and Vegas on the back end. Brock Besser is, where's Vancouver at here? I have this sorted by their schedules, not by the alphabetical. Brock Besser goes Wednesday and then Saturday, Sunday. Seattle, Anaheim, Vegas. I think it might be enough that you're getting the extra game played here that it might be worth it in my eyes. Assuming that you are. Oh, you're only going for 2 starts, Josh is in the chat. Only for 2 starts? Honestly, yeah, because you might even be able to just go back to Besser after that and get his 3 games after that, or at least 2 of them on the off nights. So, yeah, I don't mind that at all. I think that's a pretty solid option. If there's anybody else on Calgary, like I might prefer Coronado to Frost actually, personally, but I think that's a pretty solid strategy. I think that's a good move in my books. Also, both Marchand and Verhaeghe are off waiver wire tomorrow. Which one should I waste my number 1 waiver wire claim on? That's a good question as well. Both on power play 2 as of the last time we saw them. I don't think there's anything new on the. No, there's nothing new in the lines today announced by the beat reporters or anything. So they are both on power play 2 at the moment. Both Verhaeghe's got the better even strength spot. What did Marchand play? He might not even show up in the sheet. Oh yeah, he does 16 minutes average. Verhaeghe's somewhere in that range as well. A little bit over 17. I still like Verhaeghe's underlying metrics a little bit better. I would still go Verhaeghe personally, but it does feel like a bit of a toss-up. Lost Ones is here. Let's get it. Dynasty Dave, hashtag 0G. Appreciate it. CG, in a weekly locked points, have Nylander and Panarin only 2 games. Benched both feels wrong. Put in Slav and Jenner off waiver wire because they have 4 games. What would you have done? Ooh, that is tough. Nylander and Panarin for 2 games. Toronto plays Florida and Columbus, and the Rangers play Minnesota and New Jersey. I guess those are relatively middle of the road. opponents in terms of potential goal scoring against. Florida's not a great one, but Columbus is a pretty good one for the Leafs. Minnesota and New Jersey are kind of on opposite sides of middle ground for the Rangers. Slav and Jenner versus Nylander and Panarin. It does feel wrong, but it is hard to say which one is the wrong one. Um, hmm. I do like what Columbus has this week. They've got Nashville to start. Jenner's on the top power play at the moment. Slavkovsky's been doing better. They start with Florida this week, Montreal does, but then they go Boston, Philadelphia, Nashville to end the week, which is a really nice schedule. I'm curious actually what Slavkovsky's underlying stats look like. Oh, he's got the accent on his name. I need to copy it in from somewhere. Juraj Slavkovsky. Got to get it from somewhere that has the accent on his name correctly. Copy it from over here. Hopefully this works. There we go. Yeah, 75th individual scoring chances for per 60. I think I would have gone Slavkovsky at least over one of them with the 4 games and the ease of schedule. The real question would be, I think I would have kept one of them. And honestly, it's tough to say Nylander or Panarin versus Jenner. I would have tried to keep one of them. I think Nylander's been hotter as of late, but Panarin could pop off in any given game as well. They both have 6 points in their last 5 games. Panarin's actually got better underlying numbers the last little bit, so maybe I'd go Panarin. Razor thin edge there, though. Very interesting in a weekly lock like that. All right. Josh says, so Coronado over Frost. I would, personally. Pucks and Grooves. Hey, Nate, thanks for all the helpful content. Went 18-3 in a 12-man. Was first all season. Lost in my semis this week. Super upset. Any advice? Just sucks losing when you put your all into it. John Tavares absolutely destroyed me. Yeah, I said it on the show yesterday, but similar story for me in Cacuffle Tier 1. I went 17-4. Hadn't lost since 2024. I was undefeated in the new year. Got the bye. Was doing everything right. Had 9 extra games played on my opponent for the week, and yeah, I got destroyed by Kucherov and some others. So it happens, and it does suck, but yeah, you can kind of take some sort of solace in the process being correct along the way, I guess. That's what I'm trying to do. And then I do recommend that, give yourself some time to work your way through the emotions of it. Like, it's valid to have strong emotions about it. It's something that you put a lot of time into. Just because it's a game doesn't mean that you don't feel strongly about it. So I think that's valid. There's nothing wrong with feeling some type of way about having put a lot of time and effort into something and it not going your way at the end of it. So yeah, take time and feel those emotions and then give her a go. Once you have some space from it and you're able to look at it a little bit more analytically, take a look, and there are probably some things you can take away. I know I'll be doing that for myself. I'll probably be waiting till the content kind of quiets down here once we get through week 25, or at least the first half of week 25 here. Then I'll be starting to look back through my leagues and try to figure out what I could have done differently to potentially bring home some championships instead of some semifinal exits this year. So yeah, I'll be right there with you, but I don't feel bad for feeling bad. CG, appreciate the advice all season. Like and subscribe, y'all. Appreciate that. Best content out there. And shout out Blake. Pucks and Grooves. I think it just shows how much we love the sport, and I agree. 30 Deeds. Drop Timo after tonight's game. Pick up Jackson Blake for 3 games. I like that move. Yeah, I would not fault you for making that move. How am I doing in the Creators League? So yeah, I did get bounced in the Creators League. My opponent scored over 500 points in that league. So yeah, it was going to be very tough. I don't know how many times. I would have to do the math on how many times somebody scored 500 points in a week, but yeah, it was really well set up on their end. They had the bye. And I was coming in. I didn't get the bye, even though I had the most points for in the regular season there. A little bit of bad luck and a little bit of didn't close the year out quite as well as I wanted. Another league that I'll be looking at how I could have closed that out a little bit better. So yeah, I'm going for 3rd place this week. It's not nearly as high stakes, obviously, because there's who really cares 3rd or 4th place at the end of the day. But Josh from Apples and Ginos is in the finals there, so I wanna put myself in 3rd, and Josh will be hopefully 1st, and and we can have 2 people on the podium in the Creators League. That'd be nice. So hopefully we can still make that one happen. Last one's lost in semis in 2 leagues, but made the finals in the other with the bigger buy-in. All right, good stuff. Just join more leagues and diversify it. Yeah, I mean, if you have the bandwidth for it, then that is a semi-valid strategy. Yeah, I've said this a lot of times, but I play in 4 leagues. I think that's kind of the magic number for me. I feel like going to 5 might be too much. I I do think that there might be room for one more if I found the right league. If I did do it, it would probably just be like a high money entry, like hundreds of dollars entry kind of league, and yeah, play for some big money. Otherwise, I don't really think. I would say to Blake, I gotta get in like a taco league, a really bad league, and just like beat up on some people to feel good about myself in these years where I don't win any of the high quality leagues that I'm playing in. I don't actually want to do that. I don't get a lot out of beating up on people who don't really know what they're doing. Um, but yeah, I think that if I were to add one more, that would probably be what it is. But yeah, four or 5 leagues I think is a good spot for me. But for yourself, that may vary, obviously, depending on the kind of bandwidth or time allocation you have for fantasy. Von Zuli, I would be very interested in seeing or hearing about how you dissect your season. Yeah, that is definitely coming after the season wraps up here, after our normal weekly content kind of comes to a close. Blake and I will both be doing that for our respective seasons, delving into at least our most interesting leagues. I think I'll be able to get through all 4 of my leagues in a reasonable time frame, but I do want to do them justice. I do want to dig pretty deep and take away some real yeah, some real learning spots or lessons learned for next year. So I do think that I can do that. Who would you say are the best pickups for this week? Did you guys talk about it on the flagship show? Didn't get a chance to check it out yet. If you go back one more before the flagship show to the waiver wire show, that's where you'll find all that. Yeah, you can definitely check that out. It's probably around the. Actually, why don't I just look it up for a minute? I could do that very quickly. If you go back to the waiver wire show, the week 24 preview, and you go to, where was it? Here it is. If you go to about 1 hour and 6 minute mark, right around there is where I start going through the list. Rossi, Donato, Teravine, and Bertuzzi, a lot of these guys with the off nights are the guys that I was talking about there. Lost ones, 4 leagues, and without Kaprizov too, you got a seriously strong mental. Yeah, yeah, I had Kaprizov in 3 leagues, so that obviously didn't help my final results here. Helped me get there, I guess, for the games that he did play. I think I looked at it. I thought he played more of the season, but he only played like 37 games. I gotta look this up again. Kaprizov. Kirill Kaprizov, yeah, he played 37 games and scored 52 points. So he didn't even play half the season. Maybe he'll get into 4 more games and it'll be half the season here. But yeah, that is rough. I mean, it's hard to take the first round pick off of any team and hope to do well. And I still did okay, but it wasn't enough in the end. All right. That's that in the comments for now. Keep them coming. If you got questions relating to who to pick up or what moves to make, do let me know if this is your finals week, week 24, or if you're going in and you got week 25 coming up as well, and you need to kind of think about that. If you're in semifinals or finals, that does kind of influence some of the answers I might make. So if you're going to leave some comments, throw that in there as well. Last one, Von Zuli, can we throw Cooley on the list since we have Gunther and Schmaltz? Yeah. Right off the top, we're going to start with Gunther, Keller, Schmaltz, and we can absolutely, let me replace Cole Caulfield, and then I'll put him back in after the fact. Logan Cooley we can throw in as well. So Dylan Gunther in particular was the highest requested player in the Apples and Jews Discord server this particular Monday. He's got just 2 points in the last 5 games, 16.5 minutes average time on ice, 142 shots per 60, 66 in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 206 in on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 295 in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. That stands in pretty stark contrast to that individual scoring chances for number. So you can tell that he is not getting a ton of support there from the rest of the Utah Hockey Club. They did mess up these lines against the Blackhawks, which is pretty interesting. So they went with Gunther on the top line with Cooley and Keller, and Schmaltz was demoted to the Hayton Yamamoto line. So that's an interesting development for sure. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm very interested in seeing how that looks over time. Hopefully, they try it out for more than just one game and then back to the same old, same old. But I'm very interested to see what that could look like a little bit more long term. He did only play 15 minutes, 19 seconds. They won 5-2, so um, it wasn't like a barn burner, I guess, end to end. But his shots have obviously fallen off a little bit here. He's only got one shot in the last two games as well, in each of the last two games, I should say. So yeah, it is a bit of a concerning trend for Gunther overall. I'm trying desperately to not get rid of him because the talent is so obvious and so clearly demonstrated at this point in time that I feel like I'm going to regret it if I do. That being said, Utah plays Calgary, Los Angeles, Winnipeg this week. Very tough defensive environments that they're going to play against. And so it could be a scenario in which, especially against LA and Winnipeg in the back end of the week, especially if you're considering benching Gunther for the Saturday against Winnipeg, if you've got lots of options for that Saturday, maybe Gunther is on the chopping block, especially again, if you don't have week 25 to consider either, then that may factor in as well. Utah doesn't have a terrific week 25 schedule. It's a little bit middle of the road, 5 games played, only one off night. It's probably on the lesser side of the middle of the road, I guess is how I would characterize it. So it's definitely not like you have to hang on to Gunther to get to week 25 or any of the Utah players for that matter. So yeah, I think I would try to play it by ear. I'd try to see how Tuesday goes, see if he stays on the top line, and I would try to play it by ear. There are some options throughout the back end of the week in terms of streaming, so you can kind of play it by ear in that regard. If you can save a few ads towards the back end of the week and do it that way. Clayton Keller has no goals, 3 assists in the last 5. Nick Schmaltz has a goal, 2 assists, 3 points in the last 5. Logan Cooley is the one that's performing the best, 3 goals, 2 assists, and 5 points in the last 5. So all of these guys getting big minutes here. Obviously, Schmaltz, as I mentioned, did get demoted. It's worth mentioning too, Cooley had a couple of scoreless games before netting a goal in the last game against Chicago. So he had like a couple of big games, and then went cold for a couple of games, and then came back with a goal. A little bit up and down there. Schmaltz, on the other hand, I want to see if his minutes went down with this. He still had 17 minutes, 21 seconds, so he still had a good, pretty good deployment there. All of these guys are still on the top power play. Cooley has decent individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 85th there over the last little bit. Cooley and Keller are obviously the top of the group right now, I would say. Schmaltz being demoted to the I guess second line, you would call it, and definitely takes some of the shine off of his potential, especially if that continues throughout the week. So yeah, I think Schmaltz is definitely on the chopping block. Gunther, I'm trying to hang on to see how it goes through Tuesday at the very least. Keller and Cooley, I think, are in a category for me right now, at least, where I would like to hang on and like to keep rolling with them. So hopefully that's helpful on the Utah Hockey Club. Next up was Pavel Dorofeyev. Dorofeyev is a player that we talked about in the flagship show, so you can go back and check that out for sure. Just 1 goal in the last 5 games, 16 minutes a night, 35th in shots per 60, 89th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, but his line mates have been Nicolas Roy and Brandon Saad, which is obviously not going to get it done for fantasy purposes. He's still on the top power play. This is a player that's still extremely talented. You still see it in the underlying numbers here, so I'm holding on to Pavel Dorofeyev, especially if you're getting a lot of his 4 games that he plays this week. Then there's probably not a player, unless you really need the off nights, that is going to do more for you this week than Dorofeyev on your waiver wire, unless you're in like a 10-team league or smaller. Then definitely it's much more of a conversation. Dorofeyev looks great under the hood. He's definitely being held down a little bit by the line mates at the moment, but I would try to hang on to him, especially if you can get him in for the Tuesday and Thursday heavier nights this week, just because I think Vegas can absolutely get it done on the power play at the very least, and Dorofeyev has been such a huge part of that. Moving on, John Carlson, 1 goal in his last 5 games, almost 23 minutes a night, 21st shots per 60, 23rd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 47th in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 82nd in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Still running the top power play there in Washington as well. I think we're just seeing a little bit of decline year over year from John Carlson. He's just becoming a less efficient player. 5 goal, 52-point pace on the season for Carlson. I think he probably deserves a little better than what he's gotten. And I don't think this is a player, especially in a week like you have this week where Washington plays 4 games, 3 off nights. You're not dropping Carlson, in my estimation, as long as he's on that top power play, as long as he's getting 23 minutes a night on a team that's doing as well as the Washington Capitals. I don't see how you can reasonably drop him. I don't see how there's somebody else out there, even in like an 8-team league. I don't know who's out there that you're going to really find that's going to do something so much better for you this week. The Capitals play Boston, Carolina, Chicago, and the New York Islanders. Outside of Carolina, those teams are very unscary. So I do think that Carlson could have a pretty solid week for you here. Travis Konechny next up, another player that Blake and I talked about on the flagship show. 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points in his last 5, almost 20 minutes a night. 93rd shots per 60, 134 individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 118 on ice Corsi 4 per 60, 109 in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Yeah, this is a spot with Travis Konechny where it's really all about the schedule. Philadelphia plays here on Monday night, and then they don't play again until the super heavy Saturday night. So not only will you not get anything out of Konechny for Tuesday through Friday, 4 whole nights, on the Saturday, realistically, it's not. Most likely, you will have some other player to plug in on that Saturday, and so it's not like you're losing necessarily all of Konechny's production and getting a 0 in that spot. You can think of it as you probably have another player who will play in that spot if you get rid of Konechny. And so if you are in a spot where you have, if like this is your finals, week 24 is your finals, I do think it is very valid to consider dropping Konechny after the Monday game here tonight, especially if you can get 3 games of a really good streamer after the fact, after this Monday. I think that would be a really, like, if you can go get Ryan Donato after this night, you can open up some space for yourself on the Saturday, so you're mitigating the impact of missing Konechny for that final Saturday game because somebody else will play on that Saturday in his place. And you can get 3 games of a guy like Donato through the back end of the week. If that's a possibility for you, that's absolutely crushing it in my estimation. And so I would consider that. Week 25, Philadelphia plays 5 games, 2 off nights. Again, nothing to write home about in terms of that schedule. It's solid, but it's not spectacular. So if you are going to week 25, probably you're trying to hang on to Konechny if you can. But again, I wouldn't fault you at all for dropping it all and going ham this week trying to get a W. So if there are options out there, I would not fault you for dropping Travis Konechny. Same way I would not fault you for dropping a Timo Meier or a Jesper Bratt. Both of these guys have the same exact situation as Philadelphia. New Jersey plays on Monday here, and then they do not play again until the Saturday. Jesper Bratt obviously producing a lot more than Timo Meier, 6 assists, no goals in his last 5, whereas Meier has just 2 goals in his last 5. Meier has really good underlying stats. Once again, 36th in shots per 60, 7th in individual scoring chances 4 per 60, and 2nd in shot attempts per 60. 83rd Corsi 4 per 60, 64th scoring chances 4 per 60. Pucks are just not going in for his line mates randomly while he's on the ice. Jesper Bratt, the shots aren't really there, 221st in shots per 60, but 96th Corsi 4 per 60, 53rd on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. The spot that you're in here is the same as I mentioned, and it is the same headed into week 25 as well. 5 games, 2 off nights, middle of the road schedule in week 25 as well if you're going there. I would like to hang on to these guys if you're going into week 25, same way I'd like to hang on to Konechny, but again, I will not fault you for making that move if it's going to net you a whole bunch of games played in the middle of this week here. It is really tough to leave a player on your roster at this time of year in the playoffs when they are going to give you absolute zeros for 4 straight nights because they are simply not playing. That is a really tough spot to be in, and I will not fault anyone for doing what's best for the team and getting multiple games played of a good streamer in their spot. Kevin Fiala here, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points in his last 5, just over 18 minutes average time on ice, 58 shots per 60, 177 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 92nd Corsi 4 per 60, 82nd in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Los Angeles has a 3-game, 0 off night schedule this week, which is a tough week for sure. They play Winnipeg on Tuesday, Utah on Thursday, and then Edmonton on Saturday. So, relatively tough schedule this week for the LA Kings here. This is a spot where Unlike the other teams that we're talking about, LA does have a good schedule in week 25. So if you do go to week 25, they get 6 games, which is the most of any team, tied for the most with a number of other teams. 6 games played, 3 off nights in week 25. So it's a good schedule beyond this week. So if you go into week 25, I think you are trying to hold on to Fiala here. He's still in a good spot in terms of the lineup, in terms of the potential production. We've seen we've seen their ability to blow up against a lesser opponent in the San Jose Sharks here on Sunday. And Fiala still line one, still playing with Quentin Byfield at even strength. Still a good spot for him to produce moving forward. I don't think he's going to be point per game rest of season, but I think he is going to be above streamer level in the vast majority of leagues. All right, let's see what we got. Back to the comments. Do we think Vitek Vanacek would be worth a pickup this week with Florida's 2 back-to-backs? He's probably guaranteed 2 starts, I'd imagine. I mean, I don't really like the idea of picking up Vitek Vanacek, but it does feel pretty likely that he is going to get 2 starts here. They play Montreal and Toronto back-to-back, and then they go Ottawa, Detroit back-to-back. If you got the easier of those games with the Montreal and Detroit games, I'd feel a lot better about it, but I don't really know how they'll go about it just yet. I don't think they've declared a starter for Tuesday's game here. So it could be rough if you get Toronto on the back half of a back-to-back and Vanacek is just kind of tossed to the Wolves there. You know that the Leafs are going to have their ears pinned back for that game. Florida coming off a game the night before, and it's a major, major playoff seeding implication game against Toronto there. That would be a tough spot for Vanacek to be in. But if this is, if it's like a 14, 16 team league and Vanacek is the guy out there, I think that it's at least a thought that you can have. There might be other thoughts I'd prefer to have, but it's at least a thought you can have for sure. CG, weekly lock points, off nights don't matter, no riffs. Need to drop Morgan Riley 2 because only 2 games. Who would you have claimed off the waiver wire to replace him? Blankenberg, Lowright, Levshunov, or Anderson all play 4 games. Chicago only plays 3 games this week, I think, unless I'm mistaken your meaning here. I think, honestly, man, that is kind of rough. I want to go with Anderson. I think I would go with Anderson for the 4 games. If Levshunov had 4 games, then I might have gone that route. Lowry has kind of burned me a little bit. I picked him up in a few spots after the early returns were good, and then he kind of went the way of the dodo bird. Yeah, that's been a tough spot there. The minutes in the last game, I think he was sick, is what I had heard, but he only skated, I think, 16 minutes in the last game. So that wasn't a good look. That was a little bit tough to see. 16:44 did register an assist. Yeah, I think I would go with Anderson there, and it looks like that's what you did as well. All right, back to the list. You thought I forgot, but I am going to put Cole Caulfield back in there because we got to talk about how he's only got 1 goal, 1 assist, and 2 points in his last 5. Almost 19 minutes average time on ice, 97 shots per 60, 214 in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 26th in Corsi, 4 per 60, 102 in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Thing with Montreal is good schedule this week, 4 games played this week and 5 games in week 25 with 3 off nights. So again, a bit of a middle of the road schedule, a little bit better on the off nights than some of the other teams we've been talking about. I can't really go away from Caulfield. It feels just as likely that he's going to get super hot in the last few games here as he will stay cold. I don't have a lot of, he's done this pretty consistently throughout the year. He's a goal scorer. Goal scorers have these kind of hot and cold streaks. What better way to get hot? The back end of the week playing Boston, Philadelphia, Nashville, 3 teams way out of the race here. And Montreal obviously needs the points to stay hot in their playoff chase here. I feel like it's a really good spot where Caulfield could come out of this week with like 4 goals, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. The returns at this exact moment are not looking good, but the deployment is there, the minutes are there. I'm still rocking with Cole Caulfield every night of the week this week. All right. We did have a question to compare and contrast Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard, who are NCAA players who just signed with their respective teams. Gabe Perreault with the New York Rangers, Ryan Leonard with the Washington Capitals as their seasons in the NCAA wrapped up. So this will be interesting. Both of these players signing their contracts ostensibly to jump right to the NHL and try to make an impact over the last little bit of the season here. Be interested to see where they slot in the lineups because obviously that's going to be the first question. But to give you an idea of who these two players are, both are high pedigree players, first round picks. Gabriel Perreault had a has played 2 seasons now in the NCAA. In his first season, 23-24, he goes for 19 goals, 41 assists, 60 points in 36 games for Boston College. This year, 16 goals, 32 points, 32 assists, rather 48 points in 37 games this year. Apparently, he's been bulking up, trying to get better for the situation that will be here in the NHL and potentially playing a little bit more on the defensive side of the puck, which is not something he was known for as a prospect. Ryan Leonard, actually very similar statistics, just more on the goals side. Playing also for Boston College here, 31 goals, 29 assists, 60 points in his first season in 41 games. And then 30 goals, 19 assists, 49 points in 37 games this year. Ryan Leonard is a bit more pro ready, is kind of the assessment that most people have. He's 6 foot, he's 201, according to Hockey DB. So he's maybe fits the prototypical NHL mold already in terms of body development, at least. I think that you'll probably get a little bit more out of Ryan Leonard, but I don't know that there's a top 6 spot earmarked for him. I don't know that there's a top 6 spot earmarked for either of these players, to be fair. But could they, like, the Rangers in this last game had Trocheck, Panarin, and Brennan Othman as a line. I could easily see Perreault getting in on a line like that in place of Othman. So that's got me a little bit excited, where I'm not sure that that same opportunity will exist for Leonard right away, and especially because Leonard is known as, kind of a I guess a more well-rounded player, forecheck player. You think that he could fit in on a third line maybe a little bit more seamlessly, so he could go to the third line power play 2 kind of situation, whereas Perreault might get a chance to be a little bit more offensive earlier on. Yeah, in your bangers cats kind of setup, Ryan Leonard might be a little bit more successful towards the back end of the year here, but Gabe Perreault might have a little bit more offense. That's obviously a very early take, and if Ryan Leonard, if you told me that he's gonna take Tom Wilson's role on the top line or something, then that would obviously change the calculus immediately. So keep it tuned there. Both of them are great prospects. If you go by Brian Brader Hockey Prospecting's model, both these guys in the 80 plus percentages for NHLer probabilities, in the 40s for star probabilities. Some pretty solid comparisons for both these guys. I think that they will both be solid NHLers. Really, the kind of comparisons that you're getting for Perreault are kind of concerning. You're getting randomly Jaromir Jagr in there, but the other guys that you see are like Yuri Hudler, Sam Gagne, both kind of guys who are like obviously talented, but never were also kind of like in betweeners, like AHL, NHL in betweeners for significant portions of their career. Hudler did have some good seasons. I believe he had a 70-point season or two in there mixed in. So that would maybe be a little bit of a higher end expectation for what you could get out of a guy like Gabe Perreault. Yeah, 176-point season in 2014-15 for Yuri Hudler, and then the rest were all, he never exceeded 57 points in any other season in his career. So maybe that could give you an idea of what you might be able to see out of a guy like Gabe Perreault over the career. But as far as the end of this season goes, I think that's where I'm at. Obviously, you want to see the lines, but Ryan Leonard might do a little bit more peripheral stuff, whereas Perreault, I think, could at least have a shot to get into a bit more of a top 6 situation right away and see what they can do there. All right. Next up, Leo Carlsson. This guy's going off 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points in his last 5 games, 18 minutes a night, 103rd shots per 60, 126 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 17th in on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 38th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. The on ice stuff really showing up for Leo Carlsson, and he does tend to do that a little bit more even when he's going hot. His individual numbers never really pop off the page, but his underlying numbers in terms of the on ice stuff, what he's able to create for his teammates, does tend to pop up a little bit more there. I don't know that this is like the breakout arriving for Leo Carlson, but it is really good to see the underlying numbers matching up to a little bit of the production, especially in terms of the on ice stuff. In terms of the season, it's a 25 goal, 50-point pace for him on the season, and he's shooting 21% with a 70% IPP, 10.4% on ice shooting percentage. I think maybe he deserves to have like 5 less goals and 5 more assists, something like that. But either way, I think this is kind of in the range of what we might have expected from Leo Carlson. I'm actually curious now what I projected him for at the beginning of the season, because I do think it was somewhere in this range, maybe 55 points, I want to say. I had him for 22 goals and 57 points. So if he stays hot for a little bit longer, he could get close to those numbers in terms of the point percentage. He's just about there in terms of the goals already. But yeah, it's a good sign from a guy who's obviously highly drafted, third overall pick. I think that I'm not convinced that Leo Carlson is like the 1C of the future for Anaheim. I think he potentially could be. It could be a bit of a Quentin Byfield type situation where it takes him a little bit longer. Came in very young, obviously. I think he's still just 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken, because he came directly into the league. Leo Carlson, let's look this up for a moment. He is 20. Yeah, he turned 20 December 26th of 2024. So just turned 20. Big guy, already producing at the NHL level. It's good signs for sure for Leo Carlson. I'd like to see the next step here. I'm curious to see if he can do it. I think there's a solid nucleus in Anaheim. I've talked about Cutter Gauthier in the Under the Hood segment in the flagship show yesterday. I think he's really rounding into form, and they've been playing together a fair bit. So if those two could kind of become a dynamic duo, I could see where that could get really exciting. Maybe Troy Terry fits on the other side of that line, and you actually have a pretty legit top line heading into next year, at least a couple of years down the road. So I am low key excited about Carlson. I'm just not 100% convinced that this is a guy who's going to fully blossom into, like a point per game, true number one center in the league. And that's what I'm still waiting to see with him here. Shane Pinto, just 2 assists, no goals in his last 5 games, 17 and a half minutes average time on ice, 353rd in shots per 60, 143 in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 297 in on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 217 in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Pinto in the last game here was playing with Kachuk and Ridley Greig, so that's a pretty good spot in that regard. But basically getting no power play time right now, which is obviously going to hold him down in terms of the offensive upside. And then, yeah, just not being able to generate shots. The individual scoring chances are still kind of there, which is obviously a good sign overall. He hasn't played every game, but on an 82-game pace of 22 goals and 40 points, which seems somewhat reasonable for the player that we have here with Shane Pinto and the role that he has on this team. I think he is like a streamer level guy at this moment. I'd like to see him at least having some power play 2 time, which he's not getting currently. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. Not excited about Pinto until he's on at least one of the power play units. But yeah, while playing with Brady Tkachuk at even strength, that's obviously a not too bad spot. But I, again, don't think that those lines are super likely to hold for any length of time either. So it could be gone before we get to really enjoy it or any fruits from it. So at this moment, not super interested in Shane Pinto. They do have a 4-game week this week. Buffalo, Tampa, Florida, and then Columbus. So that's not the greatest. They play 5 games, 2 off nights, kind of lower end, middle of the road schedule for week 25. So you're not getting much there either. It would have to be a pretty deep league, 16-team league maybe, for me to think about Shane Pinto as a potential stream this week. Lucas Raymond has 3 goals, 4 points in his last 5, 19 and a half minutes average time on ice, 158 shots per 61, 48 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 in the 180s in the on ice stuff. He is on a 29-goal, 82-point pace on the season now, 72% IPP, 15.2% shooting percentage, and 13.2% on-ice shooting percentage. I think this can be about where Raymond lives. I think he has taken a step in terms of his efficiency. He's kind of proven that a little bit over 2 years now, and so I am starting to believe that a little bit more. In the offseason, I wasn't super convinced, and so Raymond wasn't a player that I really ended up with anywhere this season. But yeah, I think he's been quite solid, if unspectacular, I guess he's been spectacular in spurts. I shouldn't take that away from him. Um, but yeah, I think he is probably a point per game ish, maybe a little bit below point per game player, and that should be where he settles in for most of his career. Detroit has a pretty good schedule if you can get past the early part of this week. The early part of this week, Detroit plays St. Louis on Tuesday. St. Louis is just on absolutely obliterating teams right now. Then you get to the back end of the week and they play Friday, Sunday, so you get 2 off nights there. Carolina and Florida, so the opponents are pretty tough, but you do get the 2 off nights. And then in week 25, 6 games, 4 off nights. That's close to as good as it gets. Edmonton, I think, is the only team with a better schedule with 6 games also, but 5 off nights. So pretty good week 25 schedule. So yeah, Raymond, if you got him, you're hanging on and you're happy about it. Mason Lowry here, as I mentioned, just 1 assist in his last 5 games. Was sick in the last game, but played 16:44 and garnered that assist. Still on the power play for what it's worth in Boston. Boston, just as a team, is just struggling to get to the finish line here. It's pretty tough to watch on a night to night basis, and Lowry is not going to be the guy to really elevate this. I think he's an option in a 4 game week here that Boston has. So I think you can look at that. But Boston has a pretty terrible week 25 schedule, only 4 games played, and none of them are on off nights. So Lurai as a single week stream, I can get behind as your fourth or fifth defenseman, but nothing more at this point. Somebody threw Jeremy Swayman in here. I think this is just to poke fun at me for my auto pick in the Patron League that famously turned against me with that Sunday night disaster against LA that sunk me in the Patron League and my playoff chances. It is interesting to think, though, to kind of think through where Swayman might end up in terms of drafting next year, what we can expect from him for the rest of this season. I mean, I'm not expecting much of anything from Swayman for this season. The team, like, even if Swayman himself was playing particularly well, the team is absolutely detonating around him. And so I have no confidence that Swayman is going to provide much value for the rest of the season here. There's a lot of other goaltenders that I'd rather have on my roster over Jeremy Swayman right now, and I think a lot of other people out there feel similarly. I don't even think that it's a guarantee that he gets like starter, like they could just rotate. I should actually check. I'm curious to see if they have started to rotate Corpusalo into the mix a little bit more as of late. They've gone every other with the starts for the last, what is this, 7 games now? So yeah, I think it could be a spot where they're just like, we have all this money invested in Swayman. We don't need to run him into the ground in a season that's completely lost. And so they just rotate him with Corpusalo. And so, yeah, I think it's going to get pretty ugly here. He probably even draws the worst assignments. Like he could get the Capitals and the Hurricanes this week instead of the Canadians and the Sabres. Although the Sabres, the way they've been producing, and the Canadians too for that matter, not a great week for Boston overall. So I do think Swayman is completely droppable in pretty much every league right now. Andrew Mangiapane, 3 goals in his last 5, just under 12 minutes a night, so not getting much there, but obviously scoring a few goals here and there. 145th shots per 60, 111 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 58th Corsi, 4 per 60, and 144 in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. I want to check who he's been playing with. In the last game, it was Lars Eller, Taylor Radish. That's not a good look, and he's on power play 2 with Connor McMichael. Yeah, this is just a little bit of a blip in as far as I'm concerned. If you were in a real deep league and you need the off nights that Washington can give you this week, you can look this way and hope he stays a little bit hot here. But this is below the line for me where you're beyond playing with fire. You're just hoping that he doesn't give you absolute zeros all week. So that would be my concern with Mangiapane. Logan Stankoven has a goal, 2 assists, 3 points in his last 5 games, 14.5 minutes average time on ice, 81st in shots per 60, 6th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 44th in Corsi, 4 per 60, 49th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. I really like Stankoven. I really like the fit in Carolina. Carolina goes 3 games, 2 off nights this week, then 6 games, only 2 off nights in week 25, if you're looking through that time frame. This week, Carolina doesn't play till Wednesday, but then they go Wednesday, Friday off nights against the Capitals and Red Wings before finishing up with the Boston Bruins on Saturday for the week. So if you can get the Wednesday, Friday off nights, maybe you've got a Calgary or a Nashville streamer for the Monday, Tuesday, and then you want some Wednesday, Friday off nights. Logan Stankoven could do that for you, and I wouldn't be too mad about it. I love that individual scoring chances for metric. I think he fits like a glove with what they're trying to do there in Carolina. The only kind of fly in the ointment, I guess, is that obviously he's not on the top power play, and he's playing with Martinook and Kotkaniemi at even strength in the last game. So yeah, you've got to temper your expectations there as well. Maybe a bit more of a deeper stream in some leagues, but if it fits for your lineup, then I will believe in the metrics here, and I will go ahead and roster Logan Stankoven and not be too sad about it. William Karlsson, 0 goals, 5 assists, though, in his last 5 games, almost 16 minutes a night. Crucially, Karlsson is the one taking over for Thomas Hertl on the top power play unit, and so that's obviously a good spot for him. He has gone an interesting stat lines. He's got, before this last game, he had no points, but he had 4 shots on goal. The game before that, he had 3 assists and had assists in the 2 games before that. The minutes have kind of been up and down. But yeah, definitely some interesting stuff happening for Karlsson. And as I mentioned, getting that top power play deployment, which is pretty sick on Vegas with how well they've been doing it. Playing with Victor Olofsson and Riley Smith at even strength, that's obviously not ideal. I'd rather see him with Dorofiev or somebody like that at even strength to improve what is some pretty putrid underlying numbers. 126 shots per 60 is his best mark, 331st individual scoring chances for per 60, 301 in on-ice Corsi for per 60, and 235 in on-ice scoring chances for per 60. Hertl is out for all of this week, it was announced. So at least for this week, with the 4 games played for Vegas, I do like that for Karlsson. He's pretty likely to run into a couple of assists at the least this week in my mind. So I don't mind the Karlsson stream for this week. But yeah, again, it runs out as soon as Hertl is back in my mind. Vegas goes 5 games, 1 off night in week 25. So not much to write home about there. Owen Tippett's last player on the list from the Discord server, just 2 assists in his last 5. I should check to see what's been happening in this game to see if he's managed to find his way onto the score sheet. We are at the end of the second between Nashville and Philadelphia here, and we have nothing. We have 2 assists for each of Michkov and Konechny as they stay hot, but we don't have anything for Mr. Owen Tippett. Not surprising, Tippett, 12.5 minutes average time on ice. Just seems to be totally sewered by not only John Tortorella, but also now Brad Shaw. It is a tough spot for Tippett rosterers or Tippett fanboys, I guess. Ryan Paling, Jacob Pelche, his even strength line mates. That's not going to get it done on the second power play unit away from the big scorers, Konechny, Michkov of note there. I think this is definitely a spot where you can be thinking about getting rid of Tippett. In the Discord server, there was a specific question about, in a Bangers Cats format. I believe it was a 10-team format, and a big time keeper, I think it was a keep 12. I'll try to find it back exactly here so I can not just guess at what it was. Have him in a 10-team, keep 12, but he dropped from 82nd average in the league last year to 181 this year with Philly's terrible schedule this week. Lack of deployment, even with the new coach, is he even worth holding on to? My take is no, he's not worth holding on to and hasn't been for a while. Yeah, maybe you thought that the new coach would breathe some new life into him, but seems to have the same effect overall. So I would be dropping Tippett in just about every league at this point. All right, I will get back to the comments, but I also put out a call for some stories just to hear how people's matchups and finals are going. And I did get a couple of interesting ones that I wanted to note. I got a DM from Ground Beef, shout out Ground Beef from the Discord, basically saying, finally got diamond status. You can see exactly when I started to listen to Apples and Ginos in 2022, and shared the screenshot of the Yahoo has the rating, and you go from I think it's bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond. And so in 2022, you can see like this obvious up trajectory up into platinum in 2023, and then diamond in 2024. Now we're rocking a diamond rating. We love to see that. So I'm glad to have played some small part in your success there. I've said that to multiple people, and I do feel it's true. I think that a lot of people who are putting in the time to listen to podcasts, to go and investigate this stuff on their own, they will find the information. They're doing it for themselves. We're just kind of a piece of that information that hopefully we're making it a little bit easier to digest for you. So I do like hearing these stories, seeing that we've at least helped in some way, maybe just helped you find the right resources, whatever it can be. We're happy to do it, and it does bring us joy. Blake and I said, in a year where our playoffs didn't go the way we wanted across most of our leagues, it's nice to hear that it's still working for some of the listeners out there. PB Stars, my short story. I joined the Discord midway through the 23-24 season. The waiver wire suggestions and metrics methodology helped me rebuild my poorly drafted team into a championship team and another championship in 24-25. I look at fantasy hockey completely different now. You guys have taken what historically had been speculative guesswork for me and turned it into real science, the best fantasy content and community in the business. Appreciate you, PB Stars, and happy to be a part of that success as well. It's a great story. And definitely, if you got those stories, drop them in that content team mailbag or drop them in the comments of this video or the podcast, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Would like to hear as many of those stories as we can collect. Yeah, just love to be a small part of people's joy around fantasy hockey. If you've got some sad stories as well, we are happy to commiserate with you too. Don't worry, we can do that with the best of them as well. All right, back to the comments to finish this one out. With the season drawing to a close, is there already a player on mind that you'll be looking to gain some draft capital on next year? Your Wierenski for next season. Yeah, I haven't done the deep dive that I do in the off season, obviously. So there are some players that I'm thinking about that I think will be some of these players. We've talked about Carter Verhaeghe being the unluckiest player in the NHL this year. So I do think that he will be a very undervalued asset in drafts next year. And I'll be very interested in acquiring him. But definitely, I think we will be digging deep to find some of these players. That is going to be a part, shameless plug again for the Patreon, but in April, probably after week 25, we'll still be in April. And instead of puzzling players on a Monday night, I'll do the Patreon only podcast there. And I'll be digging into some of these players that I've identified already. So giving you a head start on next year. If you want to join the $2 a month Patreon tier, the supporter tier, then you'll get access to that towards the back end of April. So yeah, maybe that's something you want to investigate. Eric B, thoughts on Owen Tippett going forward in keeper league? Seems to be performing worse with Torts gone while everybody's else's offense has been ramping up. So yeah, talked about Tippett already. Hopefully you got that one there. Eric, Mr. C, sorry Nate, just tuning in. Did you get to Dobson? Thinking about bailing on him for DeSmith, have Blackwood and Kemper. Yeah, no Dobson we can throw in real quick. 3 assists in the last 5, 21 and a quarter minutes average time on ice, 18th shots per 60, 9th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 38th Corsi 4 per 60, 37th in scoring chances 4 per 60. Underlying numbers are not too bad for Noah Dobson here. He's been on the top power play alongside Tony DeAngelo there, Bo Horvat, Anders Lee, Kyle Palmieri, the forwards on that unit. I am still hanging on to Dobson personally. It is a tough week for the Islanders this week. There is no doubt. They play the Lightning, the Wild, and the Capitals this week. That is a rough go, no doubt about it. So that may be of consideration for you, but it would have to be a really strong team, or a really strong streamer, I should say, for you to consider moving away from Dobson. In my estimation, if you're going to week 25, the Islanders do have 6 games, only one off night, but 6 games in week 25 for a defenseman. That's probably more to the games played than the off nights that you care about. Noah Dobson, I think, should do better than what he's done so far. The 3 assists are something at least, but I do think that some goals will come along with it, even with the Islanders not being exactly an offensive juggernaut. Dobby's plus minus is killing me, and I'm heavy with Dobby, Doughty, Zach Werenski, Seider, Darlene, and Luke. Wow. That's quite a run of defensemen. I think I would still, yeah, the plus minus is rough. That is a real consideration in this group. I'm trying to think if there's anything to be done there. And you're in finals this week. that does change the equation a little bit if you're in a plus minus league for sure. I don't know. It's kind of just equalizing it for me. Like, um, Doughty is still like Doughty is not a player that I think is going to change a lot for you in your matchups. Where I think Dobson could have like a pop off situation, whereas Doughty, I feel very confident is not going to do that for you. However, if you need the plus minus, then maybe that's a stronger consideration there. Um, I think I would still go with Dobson over Doughty, but if it is really just his plus minus that is killing you, and yeah, with the tough week this week, in terms of the opponents, I can see it. I can definitely see it. Tampa Bay definitely will do that to some people. Washington definitely will do that to some people as well. LA, who does LA play again? I think I mentioned this. They play Winnipeg and Edmonton and Utah, some teams that can score goals. Even though LA is a good defensive environment, it's a tough look. Um, it's a very it is really about whether you need the offense of Dobson versus the plus minus, I guess, of Doughty, and I guess that's the best way I can frame it. Um, and yeah, I guess only you can decide how badly you think you need one versus the other for this week. I think if anyone pops off for 5 points in 3 games, it's definitely Dobson. But if anyone sinks you on plus minus, it's also Dobson. So it is a bit of a boom bust situation there. No problem. Would you be worried to draft Kaprizov Hughes next year with the injuries this year? This is a good spot to end it off. Basically, no. Hughes is a little bit more concerning because he's repeatedly injured shoulders, and I have a buddy who's separated a shoulder more times than he can count, and it's just like a constant thing where now there's so much damage that the shoulder just moves in ways that it shouldn't, and so it's a constant problem. And obviously, I don't have Hughes' medical records or anything, but that is a consideration now that he's had so many shoulder issues. To what extent will this kind of always be an issue for him? We don't know, but it does give you some pause. So I think that I won't fault people for taking a little bit more of a cautious approach to Jack Hughes next year. That being said, the incredible upside there, the 115 plus point upside of Jack Hughes is still so good that I think I'll be happy to roster him. Like, even Kaprizov this year with the 37 games that he played, he was a big part of getting my teams in a good spot in those 37 games that he played, in those weeks I did play. And then I was able to build up my team kind of throughout the season to withstand the loss of Kaprizov. And so especially with high end players, I'm willing to kind of take the good with the bad there. It hurts so much more that you're missing these players for playoffs. If these injuries had happened in the early year and you got them back and they were just crushing it right now, no one would be talking about this. So it is kind of a little bit of the timing of the injuries that's really hurting people. You can argue that injuries are more likely to happen a little bit later in the year when everybody's a little bit more banged up. I would like to see some data on that before making any proclamation about that. But yeah, for myself personally, I think a moderate amount of caution is warranted with Hughes, just because we could be looking at a situation where there is repetitive injury risk. With Kaprizov, this really does feel like just a one-off situation, and he should be good to go again. Not like he's going to be back on the team this year. We'll get to get a good look, and hopefully he looks great in the playoffs, and we have no worries going into next year. That would be where I'd be at with him. I'd be comfortable drafting Kaprizov in the middle of the first round next year. All right. Well, I think we've reached the end. I think we've gotten to all the comments, touched on all the most puzzling players. So that's going to be all that I've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. And that's it, folks. Much love.